Hi, world. I'm talking to myself primarily. Um, and I don't really care. Um, so I just wanted to create this story, um, thinking about the types of scripts that I live through. And that begs the question, are scripts escapable? Can I actually get out of scripts? And from my research, no, you can't. You can't live outside of scripts without sacrificing recognition or recognizability um, in the social atmosphere. Um, you don't make sense to others unless others can, inscribe you into their field of recognition or scripts that they've learned or been trained into in order to understand what reality means in the matrix sense. And I'm coming into this video with anger and frustration. Um, and this is sloppy, I suppose. And I'm sorry about that. I finished the book Giving an Account of Oneself by Judith Butler. And the question that keeps coming through my mind, even as I read this book and prior to this, is like, I am so disappointed in the world of others and selves that we've constructed for each other. We've, in my perception, structured relationality or structured a connection between others through an object called money. It's a means of moving through a transition from societal models in which the human itself is centered in the narcissistic, fear-based position of king or queen, which assumes a superiority through a psychological apparatus of their being in the world. And to a certain extent, there might be biologically superior humans in some sense. But in another way, is that really a desirable world? When we move back to the foundation of, that we're interdependent, that we need each other, when we hold up a narcissistic or a dominant other, then we already violently submit through necessity those who are not able to fit a biological image of idealism that we've imprinted on our social fabric. Sorry if that's complicated. So anyway, I finished this book and I just wake up and I'm like, this kind of sucks. And I don't know where that seed came from. I do see people smile. I see social media and I see the capacity for others to find joy and care. And I do too. I do find joy in seeing others as they are through as much work as I can to get to that point. Outside of systems that have trained me to see others through a calculation or an algorithm of value. And it's been helpful. And we can also see how mental illness, both as a productive force, mental illness as a definition becoming a thing in itself through a becoming of society itself, as a incapacity to adjust to normativity in society, but also as a psychotic incapacity to ordinary violence that is leaking, or it's not even leaking, it's ordinary, into how we've structured the world around the object of money, over, turning all things into utility, usage forms, to the point where dignity and human recognition is collateral rather than fundamental. And so I'm just really upset. I don't know, I just finished the book and I was just like, well, where do you go from here? And I don't know sometimes. Sometimes I just sit with myself and I'm like, where did it all go wrong? In a sense, I saw myself in the book. There was a position called the cynic. And the cynic was, in some sense, a position of which I cultivated. The cynic is somebody who resists, in some sense, the infrastructure of the ordinary. And what I mean by that is decides to even reveal or to speak about the distortions of interdependency that have structured ordinary life and have turned all forms of being into object comparisons. And this goes back to even a majority of my social relationships. At this point, I have few because I've mostly been only able to sustain relationships, and this might come even from my own narcissism position, and also a certain protectionist position against something. But most of my friends are just people who are willing to sit with me through the pain of my research or my suffering into the world. But even then, I was listening to Eckhart Tolle again, and Eckhart Tolle was somebody, actually, people like to, debase, they like to disrespect this, I guess, new humanism. I don't even know the categories completely of thought. And Eckhart Tolle really helped me to understand. He actually, through simple language, helped dissolve language itself, words, meaning, as structure, and was able for me to pass through my depressive position within language. I became horrified, I suppose, but even attached to my object, attached to wanting to know something painful about reality, something painful about suffering, and within the structural sense of the ordinary aspect of everyday life. And through Eckhart Tolle, I was able to kind of then take us some distance away from the thought, because I solidified thought. I took language as real, when language is just another apparatus, approximation, and everybody has their own movement towards recognizing these things, and I had to do this myself. And I think growing up, I didn't know how to do that. And that's fine, whatever. I don't care. I don't need comparisons. Um, so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that my friends introduced me to that and allowed me space to move away from my depression or my depressive stance towards knowledge and recognize even now I'm still working through my own years. I'm retroactively attempting to dissolve my attachments to language and knowledge in a depressive position towards more neutrality and just working through a fundamental or an infrastructure of life as we are just lives or beings within a moment of a thing called the universe. And so that is more so within how I'm able to survive or even thrive in some sense through ordinary life is through just distancing myself from the conceptual in a depressive way. And trying to just live more with the ordinary fundamental structures of being alive as a human being. And it's helped. But in the same sense, the scripts, they come up again. Like, it's we all do it. We attach thought, we attach a sense of recognition to other people, and I'm also recognized in certain ways, and I'm now reading somebody called Adorno, and I don't even know why I do this to myself. I have something, if we can go back to astrology, I end up just, beating myself up reading complexity of theory, and I don't really read it. I often use, to be honest, ChatGPT to help me disassemble some of the more arrogant, academic language, because I want to know, in some sense, and it's maybe a protective measure against the world that feels so hollow in many ways, where I want to know how to build real relationships with others that are not transactional, that are structured around an authentic interdependency, that see others in a framework of dignity, and that's hard work. It's for generations of social training into objectifying ourselves into market metrics, in communities of market metrics, in which we are expected to make rational decisions of our social connections based off of value-based comparisons. And I don't know how far that algorithm goes. It's exhausting at times. Like, this is also my discomfort with a lot of social atmospheres, like that don't provide capacity for address, don't provide capacity for recognition beyond appearances. These are like bars and gay bars and stuff like that, where that was part of my journey here. I never liked going to gay bars. I went to some, a few years ago, and it was just like I was just kind of put into a box, right? It was like a supermarket, a meat supermarket, and I was categorized into a box, whatever that other person categorized me as, and I was an object of consumption, or I wasn't. um, and then others were provided more recognition, or in ways that, you know, and it was like, okay, and in some sense, if we dissolve the conceptual frameworks, life was always still relatively going to be structured around assessment, outside of capitalism. But yeah, it was not very good. I just remember even like, one year when I was in Canada, I was like, this is gonna be my year where I'm gonna participate more and be more brave in the sense of my inclusion or recognition of my gay identity. And so I would go to gay events, and I was in the parade, and the parade was kind of interesting. I just kind of walked in this parade, and I mean, whatever. And then I went to some bars, and and then I went to some very, very interesting events, and it was just in some sense, yeah, people performing sexuality in a way that was not restrained by society, but still, we can't completely dissolve our training. And so I wasn't really still recognized as me. I was still sitting in scenes of sexual consumption, and then either recognized as being there, based off of metrics of value, or not being there. I was either invisible, and if I wasn't visible in a social way, I was categorized as a fetish in certain ways, just like everybody is. And it was really horrible. I don't know how people sit through that. I think they just do. They just feel like they there's that mindset, right? It's just like, just take the value that you've got, and then we don't really question what the value means, and do what you want with that value that you have, that you were given by God, or whatever gave you the value, or whatever, blah blah blah. It's the accident of being born in a particular time and space event where you can participate in activities in which provide you with a certain form of recognition, maybe pleasure, in a way that's very validating for the ego. And I guess those are great. I still participate in the world, and like, that's the part of it that you can't just escape. I attempted that, I suppose. I attempted to just go away from this crazy shitstorm of misrecognition, and it just leads to loneliness and self-destruction and psychosis and detachment and a lot of horrible things. It's really hard. It's literally impossible. So it's like learning how to live through this. I feel like it's just another rant, but I mean, just ending the book, it was like, okay, now how can I live through this? And how can I, like, live through it in a way that doesn't turn me into the cynic in the self-destructive sense? I don't like to take others as placeholders for good or bad actions, because people are so complex. Like, that's also why I don't like most media. I mean, I still observe it, but usually in the absurd sense. No, I don't take it too seriously, as most people are they're very confused about what is happening, and they're also stuck within their own social ideological or ideas about and language of recognition and understanding that pass through them, and so there's no true escape from the apparatus. So I just try not to take anything too intensively anymore. It's probably just a trained survival tactic to stay grounded in a sea of chaos. And yeah, I'm just going on to this new book. I'm thinking about, unsubscribing to something. My friends are unsubscribing. I'm in a mess. I don't know what is happening. Yeah, I'm okay. That was a book, giving an account of oneself. And I'm not saying I'm a genius. I'm not. I'm not talented in any intellectual sense. In any sense, I mean, I have some maybe skills that others do not have, and I still hate the comparison piece against that is disgusting. Because I didn't choose any of these things. It's just being in the world in a way that allows me to contribute in a way that's not dehumanizing is my goal, and also respectful of myself, my own mental health. And yeah, so that was a book. If I would recommend, if you can, Judith Butler has really helped change me from gender into what even for. It's not even about gender anymore. Judith Butler is more concerned about how we are shaped or formed through Hegel, through Nietzsche, through Foucault, of course the Western, philosophical canon, so it's very Eurocentric in some sense. But it's working through some of the same, reflections on ego. I'm not in anywhere near the author's capacity to speak on these topics, but it's really moved me in a way that I just need more. I'm going to take some time to process what I've learned and try to live with more care and attention in a social world, and not hold so much resistance against it, which has been such a long position of when you jump into the seat of examination of your life and your life in conjunction with the world. It can be very, very, very painful and complex, and I would not recommend it to people. To be honest, I would not recommend it unless you had incredibly strong mental strength, and also money, a lot of money and facilities to work through the confusions and distortions that you will produce yourself, and also just the part of being alive. So yeah, that was the book I was reading, and that's my the Scripts of Living.